We bring you what we believe is the most topical issue for the week. Now, today, we have two very important conversations to have, as we usually do. The first is that, just in case you're not aware, there is actually a free SHS bill which will land in Parliament next week. That's according to the majority leader, who hinted the public or hinted Ghanaians last week. Now, according to him, the government thinks that it is of utmost importance to bring a bill that will regulate, that would sustain the bill, and so on and so forth. But there are others who are raising some serious reservations about it. In fact, there are others who are reading all kinds of mischief or an ulterior motive into government's decision to lay this bill in Parliament. Some say it's pure political mischief. Some say it's a PR stunt. Some also say that it's actually a good move, so that we know exactly where the source of funding for SHS is going to come from. So that's where the bit about the sustainability comes in. And the majority that says that this is happening because he thinks the government wants to protect the free SHS. So that's where people are reading all kinds of meanings into the move. But then again, the second issue is that the ambulance trial, the popular ambulance trial, is still happening, and very fascinating, very interesting developments have taken place. On Thursday, the judge, or the sitting judge, and she's called Justice Ifyasewa Asari Butchie, who's the trial judge in that ongoing ambulance case, on Thursday admitted an audio recording between the Attorney General and the third accused, and I'm talking about Mr. Richard Jakpa. She admitted it, and she's admitted it into evidence. Now, we want to understand what that means. And we are laymen, we are mere mortals. We do not understand some of these court processes. So when they say a judge has admitted an audio in evidence, what does that mean? But a more fundamental question, which people have asked, is of what material value would that bring to the substantive case which the sitting trial or the trial judge is looking at, and where does that lead all of us? And that's what we try and get from some legal brains will be joining us this morning as far as this matter is concerned. My name once again is Moraldo. When I come back, I'll be telling you the number that you can send your opinions and reviews on. Let me know what you think about the issues and the discussion. And then also, I'll be telling you who will be joining me this morning.
We'll present the free SHS bill to Parliament. You know, the Chapter 5 of the Constitution provides some aspirational indicatives. Those are not justiciable. But once, by policy of government, an aspiration, as envisaged by the Constitution, is put into action, then to make it justiciable, you enact. In other words, there are provisions in the Constitution that you cannot enforce. You cannot claim rights to those provisions. The fact that they are there does not mean that you can apply to the court to enforce those rights. They are merely, should I use merely? They are aspirational. Now, when it gets to a point that a government lifts it up to give life to it, there's a need to enact a law to regulate same. And in doing so, it should have been given life. Then the lawyers will say now it has become justiciable, in the sense that a court of law can rely on it to make certain orders, enforce certain rights, and give rights, and take certain actions. So I think that this free SHS bill, if we consider as a house, what that means is that it becomes mandatory for government to implement this. Unless it is repealed, no government would have the right to say, I am not going to enforce free SHS.
Since the majority leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin announced on Tuesday that the free SHS bill will be brought to Parliament, the minority in Parliament and other civil society organizations have kicked against it. The reasons were that some key stakeholders have not been involved in the drafting process. On the floor of Parliament on Friday, June 14, the majority leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin, whilst reading the business statement, indicated that the bill will be introduced to Parliament next week.
Mr. Speaker, we expect that in the ensuing week, the free SHS bill will be presented to the House for first reading by the Minister of Education.
However, the minority caucus in Parliament said the bill cannot be considered as part of business for next week. Whilst the Member of Parliament for South Dai constituency, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo, said the free SHS bill has not been gazetted and copies not given to MPs, the minority chief whip, Govins Kwame Abuja, also argued that the bill is not captured as part of business for the coming week.
Yesterday, he hinted this House that there's some bill that is called the free SHS bill. It is not before the House, but the issues were raised about it. Again, he's saying that he expects that the bill will be presented next week. The business statement doesn't say so. So we want to be very clear, like the former deputy majority leader said. Let us be very clear regarding the businesses that will carry in this House next week.
I'm a member of the business committee. We never discussed, he never even brought the issue of, a free SHS bill. So it's not even captured here. And in fact, he ordered an order paper addendum. Even on that, I can see the education minister here. The only thing the education minister is coming to do here is to lay a national service bill 2024. But then the leader said that next week there's a possibility of even debating the first reading, doing the first reading of the bill. He knows that bill needed to be laid, referred to a committee, a report brought to the House. So your fixation, I think you want the free SHS bill so dearly. Bring it to the House and we'll work to help you deal with it. Otherwise, it appears that you are just saying it in public to achieve an end. Because as we speak, no one has seen a draft bill regarding free SHS. And it is important that as a leader of the House, you should speak from a position of fact.
The majority leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin then explained why the bill will be introduced to the House next week.
When we make that general provision, it is to talk about things that will come. Again, we also refer to statement to be admitted by Mr. Speaker. It does not mean that Mr. Speaker has already admitted. So these are proposals. So I just want you to understand the context under which I make that statement. In any event, I haven't said it anywhere elsewhere. I've said it right here in this chamber, that we should expect the Minister of Education to introduce the free SHS bill. And I don't want an impression to be created by Honorable Dafiamepo that it is only under Order 159 of the rules of this House that a bill can be introduced.
All right, that was a very heated debate in Parliament. You had the member from the minority side, that's Governor Abuja, who is the member of Parliament for Dakulu, actually asking the majority leader to just go ahead and present the bill, because without a content, without some substance, it's very difficult to express any opinion. And then you heard the majority leader say, well, he was just proposing. He was just telling them ahead of time that something like that was in the offing so that they can get ready. But as I did indicate, that we have two very important conversations to have this morning. The first is this free SHS proposal to table a free SHS bill in Parliament, for Parliament to pass it in order to, as the majority leader said, to first of all regulate it and to be able to sustain it. But there's another bit which it says in order to protect it. So question is, protect it from what and from who? So that's the question some people are asking. And so we're delving into those vexed issues. And then, of course, the infamous recording that took place between the businessman, Richard Jakpa, and the Attorney General in that ambulance trial, which is happening in court, has finally been admitted by the sitting judge. Sewa Asaribotre Abuli, I believe I got her to pronounce. I hope I got the name correctly. She's admitted it in evidence. We want to know what that means and what that means for the substantive case currently before her. Now, joining us in the studio this morning is the honorable, hardworking, but also very affable Director of International Relations for the NDC, that Mr. Alex Segbefia, who's joined us this morning. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure having you, sir. Right. I noticed that you're very fond of the fugu. You wear fugu quite often. So your microphone.
It's just user friendly.
Right.
So for me, and it looks good. So with the matching headwear, I kind of feel very comfortable and presentable.
Right.
So I'm going through a stint at the moment of wearing a lot of fugu.
Okay, that's great.
And and I should actually commend the people who have been sending them to me from Tamale.
Okay, free of charge.
Yes,
People donate them to you.
Yes, and I'm not in government.
That's how much you love.
So there are people in Tamale. I'll give their names subsequently. There's a tailor, and there's also a group of people who I have 3 sets of people who send me fugus.
Okay.
So fantastic, and I want to say kudos to them for dressing me and making me look good every time I come on air or on set.
Right. And I'd want to use this opportunity to tell them to add me to the list of persons that it would send the fugu to, so that I can wear it and also look like Mr. Alex Segbefia. That's just by the by, don't mind me. And anyway, so let me just say that I'll also be joined by Kingsley Amwakwa Buedu, who is a member of the MPP's legal team. He will join us shortly in the studio. But we'll also be joining Vazum, Mr. Kofi Asare. He's the Executive Director for Education Watch. It's a policy think tank. He'll be joining us shortly as well to give us his thoughts about this proposal for a free SHS bill, which the government intends to lay in Parliament for it to be debated, and then also, but essentially, according to the government, to protect the free SHS and also to ensure its sustainability. All right. So, but then the question is the 1992 Constitution enough? That's the question, as you can see, as we're written on that flyer. So we'll start with Mr. Alex Segbefia. But before that, let me just say that 0249 155 646, 0249 155 646. That's the WhatsApp line. Please do share your opinion and your views and your perspectives with us. 0249 155 646. Do you think that we need another law? We need an ally to regulate and to ensure the sustainability of the free SHS? Or you think that the 1992 Constitution, as it is enshrined, I think Chapter 5? I believe so. It's enough. And then also, what do you make of all that's happening in court with this Richard Jakpa, Attorney General, and so on? What do you also make of the audio which the judge has actually admitted in evidence? So 0249 155 646. So I'll start with Mr. Alex Segbefia. Now, what was your immediate reaction when you heard that there was such a thing in the offing, which is a bill to be laid in Parliament and hopefully becomes law that would essentially ensure that the free SHS is sustainable and also to protect it? Because as, Alex Fenyomarkin said, he cannot trust that a future NDC government would leave free SHS as it is without tampering with it.
Once again, good morning, Moro, and good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners. I think that because of the last statement about protection, the only reason why this has now become a topical issue, because we have asked for a policy document first, which we have not got yet, and now we are being told about legislation. There's no point in talking about the legislation because neither are you nor I, even for that matter, the members of parliament have even seen the draft bill.
Right.
So we do not know what it contains.
Right.
But to say that it is for the protection of free SHS, and to say that matters that in the Constitution clearly written, not implied, are not justiciable.
Right.
Flies in the face of everything that is in courts of Ghana currently.
Okay.
Because anything that is in the breach of the Constitution is challenged, even within the course of any hearing or trial, civil or criminal.
Right.
Is stayed for a decision to be made on the interpretation of that Constitution before that case moves on, or the articles within the Constitution. So the Constitution is the number one justiciable document.
Right.
And therefore, I don't agree with my brother Alex Afeni.
So help me understand something. I mean, you're a lawyer, and of course, a very reputable one indeed. You're saying that every law or every provision in the Constitution is justiciable.
Yes, because if it's in breach of the Constitution, it goes to the Supreme Court, and they decide whether it is in breach or not.
I see.
Yes. So if you decide that Sam is not a Ghanaian, because, or Moro is not a Ghanaian because his fingernails are red.
Yes.
And somebody challenges you in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rules that your fingernail color is not part of what decides you are a Ghanaian or not.
Okay.
No law you pass will ever make your fingernails the criteria for which you are going to be considered a Ghanaian.
I see.
The law will be null and void.
Okay, because it is inconsistent.
Yes, with the Constitution.
The 1992 Constitution.
Exactly. So it is the number one document that we all rely on. We are all governed and ruled by the Constitution.
So,
and the beauty of the free SHS is that it is actually in a provision of the Constitution.
Yes.
And this is why we've always argued with the MPP when they say we brought free SHS. Two things wrong about that. The free SHS concept was conceived already by the framers of the Constitution.
Right.
Way back in 92, it was decided
by the Consultative Assembly.
Yes, that a progressive free senior high school of secondary education was to be considered.
Okay.
Let's be clear. The MPP boycotted the consultative arrangement.
That's a fact.
They didn't take part in it.
Right.
They were not prepared to sit with market women, butchers, and whatnot for us to all craft, because they were very elitist about an all-inclusive group that was going to help frame the document. So even this free SHS, the people who actually conceived it were from the AFRC, PNDC era, the forefathers of NDC. So if it is even the idea, the concept, it has got nothing to do with MPP. They were not at the table.
Okay.
And we put it in this Constitution that governs all of us. What MPP can take credit for is that they decided to implement it all at a go.
Right.
But prior to them trying to implement it all at a go, John Mahama began a progressive implementation of free SHS.
Right.
With all the new schools he was building, they put in free SH policy into it.
Right.
So
started with day students.
Yes. So it is also not true that the MPP started it. Not only did they not craft it,
Right.
they also did not start it.
Okay.
But we give them credit for saying they wanted to do it big bang.
Right.
And when we were going into the election, we said, look, it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea because you have gaps which you need to fill.
Right.
Predominant of those gaps were twofold, or a number.
Right.
One was we didn't have sufficient infrastructure. Secondly, we did not have enough teachers. We had not bothered to put in a policy document. And we were going to implement it just off the cuff.
Right.
The counter argument to that is that, there are all this raft of people who didn't have education who now have education. And my argument is that let's be careful that we haven't sacrificed quality for quantity. And the arguments, no, there are a lot more people, look at the grades. There are so many issues about the kind of students we prepare and how we prepare them for exams.
Right.
We've had debates on this year.
Right.
So you've had issues about teachers coaching students, past papers or exam papers being given and coached in a particular way, etc., etc.
Right.
Without, yet textbooks were not given.
Okay.
We were not able to get textbooks, but we were able to get all kinds of other things to ensure people pass exams. When you get into the universities, it's a different ball game with regard to how you are supposed to study and learn, and people are found wanting. That's why we are concerned about. We are happy. It's something that should be done. It's a constitutional requirement.
Right.
But we were of the view that a progressive approach would have been better than a big bang.
Right.
Now we have the big bang, which means that what the Constitution asked us to have, we have.
Okay.
So anybody who tries to reverse it will be deemed to be, in my humble opinion, acting unconstitutionally.
Right.
Because it is a constitutional requirement. They didn't give any timelines in the Constitution, but once you have done it and you are in it, you cannot now reverse it.
Right.
So there's no need for any protection.
Right.
The protection is enshrined in the Constitution itself. Now, we have no problem with a policy document or statute, law being passed, to guide us into how we implement it. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have a problem when you use the word protection. That's why I said the whole argument is on that we are trying to protect free SHS. Protect it for what? It's already protected in the Constitution. Right. But if we need a document, and we do, we need a policy document or statute that tells us how we go about it, certain issues. That's why I say,
and it is source of funding.
All those things are needed.
Right.
But let's not pretend. How long has progressive been going on under Mahama? It was there for close to 2 years,
right,
if not longer. After we left and they went into full Big Bang, we are now technically in the 6th year, because I think if I reflected in the first year,
yes,
so we are 7 years down the line.
Exactly.
Have we had a statute? Have we had a policy document? No. But we've been able to work it. So all you're doing is doing what you should have done from the beginning. And that's why we said, look, we all know what we've been through. Double track system, some call it traffic lights. Lack of teachers, no textbooks, difficulties for students in terms of the term times, so no consistency in how the terms move. It was abysmal. So if you have a large number of people now saying, we've got it through and we have passed, you are always going to get a larger number. Proportionally, does it make sense?
Right.
And how many people have we churned out with documents which can't help them?
Right.
It's a good policy. It's necessary because for almost every form of employment, you need to have basic to even apply qualifications up to the SSS level. So once you have that, you can apply to go to the services, so police, military, etc. That's the minimum requirement.
Okay.
So by increasing the number, you help them.
Right.
But if you are churning out students who are, and look, let's not joke about it. We have police officers now who can put a statement together to prosecute a case.
Right.
But they are in the police force. the kind of recruitment that has gone on. You have people who are promoted, they cannot file a docket to help anybody. So I am clear that as a policy, it's good. Manner of implementation, question marks.
Right.
But we've gone past that.
Right.
We are now in it. So if you want to put in a bill or an act which is going to help us regulate or set the parameters, know where the funding is coming from, etc., fine. But don't use the word protection.
Protect, because
it's protected already.
Right. Because so I think the question is, it begs the question, why do you want to protect something whose destruction is not possible?
Exactly.
Okay. Let me
But more importantly, before you go, let me add, it is pure political mischief.
How do you mean?
Because you must keep free SHS on the banner. It is the one thing that we can say MPP has made a lot of mileage on.
Okay.
Whether rightly or wrongly.
Okay.
Politically, yes. So it must still remain on the banner.
To achieve what end?
Why are we not doing elections in the 7th December?
Okay.
We are 6 months to election. It's a good story. It keeps it on the front banner. You can't say you are bringing free SHS again.
Right. So
because it's already in there.
So bring the conversation back to remind Ghanaians that this is the role the MPP has played.
Yes, and it is trying to feed into the mistaken, wrongly propagandist view of the MPP that when NDC comes, free SHS will be removed.
Will be scrapped.
When they even went as far as doing English gymnastics, saying that review means remove. So when you have that background, in order to keep free SHS as something that can be used in a campaign, you bring in a bill like this and say, we are here to protect free SHS when it's already protected.
You're suggesting that the MPP is engaged in scaremongering.
Very much so.
Okay.
Propagandist issue. No, where did this protection come from?
Right. Now, Kingsley Amwakwa-Boydu is here. He's a member of the MPP's legal team, but also he's also been helping quite effectively with the party's communication. And I can tell you that anytime we invite him, unless, of course, there's another competitor media house that tries to get him all the time, but once he doesn't go there, he's here. And he's always happy to see you, boss. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm all higher.
That's very political. That's very political. Against other media houses that I go to.
Sorry, sir.
Well, between you and them. I mean,
whatever arrangements we have, as for you did. I hear you, boss. But Kingsley, it's good to see you. And you're also in your nice...
good morning to my learned seniors.
Right.
Well. It's always a joy to
So, Kingsley, my question to you is this. Look, as stated in Article 25(1)(b) of the 1992 Constitution, which talks about the fact that secondary education in its different forms, including technical and vocational education, shall be made generally available and accessible to all by every appropriate means, and in particular, by the progressive introduction of free education. So it's there. Yes. It's in the law, 1992 Constitution. What other law is your government thinking of doing again? In any case, if you come with a bill in Parliament, that bill can easily be repealed. So why are you bothering yourself introducing a law again? To achieve what exactly?
Okay, good morning. Good morning to viewers and listeners. Once again, good morning to my learned senior. And just to also say that I love my butter curries and my smokes. Right. Love them so much.
You heard him when he was talking.
I always say I listen to it.
Okay.
Well, yes. Love them. I think this is Ghanaian. This is what this is us, you know.
Symbol of our heritage.
So anytime I don't have to go to court, on Fridays I don't go to court. If you come to my office, this is what I'm wearing.
Okay.
I even have my beads to go with it.
Oh, wow.
And for me, because I also lecture most of my African words for my students, okay. I mean, I know you are from the northern part of Ghana.
North, yeah.
And I think they are distinct smocks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Right.
if this group sees, I think that when the Dagombe see are wearing the front fresh, so say, ours is better. So, and then they'll bring me, I don't know the difference.
My producer my director just mentioned to me that he said whether I like it or not, next week Saturday I'm supposed to be wearing smock.
Great.
But
Super.
It also then becomes incumbent on my senior brothers like you to make sure that I get a smock next week Saturday.
That's if I'm coming. That's in the politics thing for you.
The food that you eat, you're asking me to find it for you.
Sounds like a trap.
And that's if the politics favor you, so I come here.
Oh, what you the politics? What it did to me, I don't pay. Anyway,
so it's good.
I'll be
also
smoked next week
from
Saturday.
Beads. I mean, I think we all put their names out there, and I love wearing that. Having said that, I had my senior brother saying that MPP did not introduce free SHS. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
I think this is a flogged statement.
It's debatable.
Yeah, no, not debatable. It's already out there. We introduced the free education as we see it now. Of course, yes, some free education introduced by Nkrumah's time for our brothers and sisters for the northern part, and Mama will talk about his progressive side of it. Yes, but free SHS as we see it now, to which millions of people have benefited from, people have been off the street. We introduced it.
That is not in doubt.
That's not in doubt.
That is not in doubt.
Now we can talk about challenges that is encountered. In every policy you introduce, you would encounter challenges. So we can talk about that and how to solve it. For some of us, when it comes to education in Ghana, for us, it's key. It's key because we've had, I feel like, a whole probably half of a generation, maybe 40 years, if a generation is 80, where we've had a lot of things which has been on the back of gerrymandering and sloganism and whatnot.
Right.
And when you engage one-on-one the people to discuss it, you realize that they don't even appreciate it.
Right.
You see, that's the reason why some of us jumped into the media space to discuss certain things about law and whatnot, and I found myself where I am now. It's because people do not really appreciate it. And so gone are the days where someone will come and talk bombastically and hold the glass and crack it in front of the people. And the people, he spoke very well and he's a very powerful person. What did he say? So you realize that nowadays it's difficult to just get people following you in masses. You need to they need to understand. They will ask you intelligent questions. And that's what we're driving at. Right. And that's very important. So that we can now go into digitalization, and we are saying that we're going to train 1 million people, 1 million students. All right? It doesn't come without the 7 years or 7 years plus of free education. And that is what is important. Even before then, 2015, myself, Dennis and other lawyers, we took this matter to court.
You mean Dennis Jumo?
No.
Dennis?
Dennis Foswapia.
Oh, Foswapia, okay.
It's my brother.
Okay.
We took this matter, PPP versus Attorney General, to the Supreme Court, where we were saying that even though primary education is free, if you look at the Constitution, you still have people working on the streets. So it's incumbent on the government to get them. Unfortunately, it didn't go in our favor. That didn't go in our favor.
Yeah.
You see, so you could have matters enshrined in the Constitution, all right? But then when you go to the Supreme Court, depending on what you are asking for the reliefs and whatnot, you may not achieve what you are looking for. We are saying that if it is passed as a law, and don't forget that my brother's side will have all the time in the world to debate it. Now that they are admitting that, free education, I have lots of videos, clips on my phone and on YouTube where they're actually opposing free education. One of them, I was walking around Circle, and now the women who were holding placards were saying things that it looks like whether it's good or not, we oppose it because it is not being introduced by us.
But how do you know the NDC people?
Oh, it was an NDC. It was an NDC rally.
Rally?
Yes, in 2017.
Right. I'm glad you joined us.
Sorry?
I'm glad you joined our rally.
Me? No.
He was a passerby.
I
don't know about
circle.
passerby. Yeah. He knows a lot about it, so he was.
No. I was driving around circle, right? Yeah. And I slowed down to listen to them. And then they say it's not good at all. I mean, we all saw that. It's not good at all and whatnot. You see? The fact is that I'm glad we are where we are. It is now part and parcel of us. To the extent the NDC cannot
repeal it.
No, repeal it.
Yeah,
you cannot scrap it. Yes. Yeah. So now we're saying, let's make it part and parcel of our laws. All right? You're talking about source of funding and whatnot. We're saying, let's make it part and parcel of our laws. Regardless of how you twist Afenyo Markin's comment and whatnot, let's make it part and parcel of our laws.
Is what is contained in the Constitution not enough? No. Or you also agree it is not justiciable?
If it was enough,
yes.
Look at PPP versus Attorney General.
Okay.
The introduction, how His Lordship Justice Jakpa resolved the matter.
Okay.
Yes, he admits that it is the Constitution and all that. But it became another issue of whether even the forum is proper, because we are enforcing, it should go to the High Court and whatnot. And they are because the bottom line is that what we're asking for was very sweeping, because we're saying that the government must go around and get every child into the classroom. I think that used to be the case, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Those times. Even in UK, if your child doesn't go to school, the parents are in trouble. Or the guardian, you're in trouble. So we wanted that kind of thing. All right. Thankfully, we have enlarged the secondary level of it. Okay. And then we are now considering the primary again. And the tertiary, remember, the tertiary has also become political. Some are saying they will fund the first year and whatnot. Some are saying that they will also include the private institutions. I'm so happy about this. So because no matter how it goes, the Ghanaian wins. And that is the essence of politics. Right. The Ghanaian wins. All right. And so if you are saying we will pass a law, it will be subject to all they're asking for, the policy, the divergent views.
When you talk
I know you're calling up. You're going to talk about.
Yes, Kofi Asare is going to talk
exactly.
to us. But
so
if you
that
talk
all
about
that
protection. We've heard some of your communicators, in fact, even including the majority leader, talk about protection. So Alex Sebefia and the NDC are asking, protecting it from who? Because you cannot protect a child from the mother. The parents give birth to the child.
Right.
And
so the parent is us.
Well, no. Okay. So let me set the context. In fact, just before you came, Alex Sebefia mentioned, if it says anybody who says that the NDC can do something bad to the free SHS is wrong on two counts. One, in 1992, when the idea was conceptualized, and it was put there by the framers of the Constitution at the time when the NPP did not even participate in that consultative assembly, 1992. So somebody dreamt about, somebody envisioned it and put it there, right? And I just read the law, 5B something. I just read it to you. So that's the one. That's one count. The second count is that you cannot tell somebody who started a program, started it, albeit with free or with day students, okay, as a way of introducing the policy, as a way of implementing the policy. You cannot, by the stretch of any imagination, tell that person that the person is against the policy. If I'm against a certain policy, I will not introduce in the first place. And remember that the NDC said, according to Alice Abefia, that they are introducing it just as the Constitution said, progressively. So start with day students, roping borders, and we go on and on and on and on. And that fundamentally, that's always been their issues with the way the free SHS has been implemented. They have never and cannot be against something that they put in the Constitution.
All right.
He said
so
that.
So does it mean that? Yeah. Does it mean that we are going to go back to what it was before NPP came into power? Right. By analogy, is that what you're saying?
Well, that's a valid question.
Then it needs protection. If that's the case, then it needs protection.
Right.
We should rather be looking forward. We've introduced it.
Okay.
There are problems with it. I mean, nobody will sit somewhere and say there are no problems.
That's a fact.
Yes, that's a fact. How do we solve that? How do we make sure it is guided by the laws?
So is the idea to tie the hands of a future government from saying that what can we do better and what can we take out? You want to tie their hands so that they can't do that. They can't review it. Is that what the law is? Aimed at achieving?
Even your future government is saying them.
Yeah.
It is not them. They are not the future government. Okay.
No, I
just have to throw that in. They are not the future government. Please.
It's not coming from me.
It came from you.
No, I said future.
It came from you. Say them. You say them.
No.
I am saying they are not the future government.
Future
now, I'm saying they are not the future government.
I'm not even going to worry about the future.
Right.
It will come.
What we
The
say
future has
is
a way
that-
of coming.
Well,
so there's no problem.
That's another conversation.
Exactly.
Please.
So
I want you to learn so I can bring
couch.
it. I want you to learn so I can bring it. Kofi
Don't
Asare.
couch in such a way that
Right.
as if we are about to go and we want them to come and face. No, it's not like that.
Right.
It is a fact that if the idea is that we are going to go back to how it was, the progressive nature, we are saying no.
Who says so?
I said if.
Yeah.
If. Okay, then if it's in that context, then it needs protection.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Now, you see, let's focus, but because education is so fundamental. Okay, so fundamental, and all of us agree of the positive effect of education. All of us also are saying that it is good we have free education.
Okay.
We have to look at, tidy up all those parts that we think are problematic.
Okay.
Even funding.
Right.
You see? So if that is the issue,
Yes.
then let's not focus on who introduced it, who
did that?
introduced that.
Gone past that
It's
debate.
gone past, we introduced
But
that.
do you know
It's
why?
gone
But
past
do you know why
that
it keeps coming back?
Why?
It keeps coming back because you talk about protection.
But I explained it to you.
Hold on.
If any idea of review is to go back to the progressive nature of it,
Yes.
then no.
But that's a big if. You see, when you talk about protection,
Yes.
it then suggests
Moral.
It then suggests that somebody wants to scrap it. But even that, if you listen again to some of your communicators, let's talk about the fact that the NDC is implacably opposed to free SHS, even as a concept.
Because of how they oppose it.
Because of certain things that happened in the past. Let's talk about radio adverts that were apparently, because the NDC is actually, they said it's not true, but the MPP will tell you all the time that there were actually some tapes that were sponsored, that were played on certain media houses to actually say that free SHS is a scam, it won't happen. I was there. I listened. I heard all of that.
We all heard
So when the NDC comes back to say that the issue of protection is a neither here nor there matter, because of reasons ABC, that's Mr. Alex, that's why the issue comes in all the time. But I'll come back to you, boss. I beg you. Let me go to Mr. Kofi Asare. He has other things to attend to, so let me just finish with him, and then he can leave us so he can attend to some other assignments. Mr. Kofi Asare is the executive director of EduWatch, as we popularly call it. His education was a policy think tank. Mr. Kofi Asare, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages.
Hello, Moro, good morning, and good morning to your panelists.
You
and your
appear
audience.
to be in awe. You are in your 6s and 7s. You're totally surprised this proposition is coming up in the first place. Why?
I'm a bit surprised that we are discussing a free senior high school law because it's a monumental departure from Ghana's legal culture in the education space. And let me try and give this little context. Across the continent, we have similar commitments to education as a fundamental right and secondary education, because we also subscribe to the same international conventions that we have ratified and we are localizing through our laws, and policies. Now, if you look at Africa's education system generally, we normally adopt an approach where countries will have one law for education, and then they will have a separate law for basic education alone, because basic education is a fundamental right. So you go to Nigeria, you see that they have the education law, they have their main education law. And then, in addition to the main education law in Nigeria, you realize that they have the compulsory free universal basic education, CFUBE law of 2024. So there's a general law for education, that's the 1985 Education Act, which provides the right to education from basic, secondary, tertiary, and everything, and all the institutional arrangement, the structure, the standards, and then a specific one for basic education, which is a fundamental right, which is the CFUBE Act 2004. If you go to a country like, let's say, if you go to Kenya, for instance, they also have an education law, which is the Kenyan Education Act in 2012, which provides the institutions, the rights, the standards for education from basic to tertiary. Then they zoom in again on the fundamental right to basic education. Because basic education is a fundamental right, they have a Basic Education Act, which is Act 14. So that was done a year after their main education act, starting in 2013. So the trend continues in many of these countries. And bear in mind, Kenya has free secondary education policy there. Okay, but they don't have it. They have a basic education law. They had it in 2013. So if you look at the trend, in Ghana's case, we had an education law. President Kufuor passed the Education Act 778. And it provided for, let me say that in Ghana's context, we have never followed the broad education law and then offshoots. We have always had a broad pre-tertiary education law, separated pre-tertiary from tertiary. So if you look at all our laws, you look at the history of education jurisprudence, all our laws, you realize that we always have an Education Act, and then it covers only basic and secondary. It doesn't include tertiary. So I won't go too far. 20 years ago or so, the Education Act 778 focused on basic and secondary education rights, institutions, standards. That is where we established all the regulatory bodies, NACA, NASIA, Team Council, curriculum assessment, and all that, to ensure that there's standard. I mean, there are standards to be regulated. And then GES is actually in the act, even though we had a GES Act of 506 and everything. So if we were following the African example, it meant that after having the Education Act of 778, we would have gone further to have a Basic Education Act. Or basic education is the foremost fundamental right in education, but that didn't happen. Okay, so when the current administration came into power, they focused on harmonizing a couple of laws that were amorphous. We had the GES Acts, portions of it was still operational. All of them were not expressly repealed in the 778. So we had a new law being developed by the current government under His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, which is called the Pre-Tertiary Education Act.
Okay.
1049. So this act came to replace the 778. Now, in this act, the government harmonized the entire pre-tertiary space to the extent that it brought the GES, it brought the TVET service, the two agencies responsible for delivering basic education and secondary education, and TVET under one act. And then also, it provided all the rights to basic education, right to free secondary education, Section 3, all the legal rights there. And then it went ahead and passed the Education Regulatory Bodies Act. And this act was a single act for about four regulatory bodies that previously had, that were found in various places. So we had the NTC, the NACA, NASIA, all being brought under one law, and then also bringing the TEC, which previously was the National Council for Tertiary Education, and they had their own law, bringing all the regulatory bodies under one law, harmonizing the system. Okay. Makes it easier to coordinate.
Okay.
So, given the direction Ghana decided to, one was expecting that the next point was either to move further and develop a basic education law, because we don't have a basic education law, and I've never seen a basic education policy before in the 22 years of my practice. So we don't have a basic education law, we don't have a basic education policy. Unlike secondary education, where we have a free senior high school, well-documented policy, we don't have that for basic education, which is the foremost fundamental education rights. So I was expecting that after the pre-tertiary law was passed in 2020, which made free basic education a right in Section 2 and free secondary and TVET education a right in Section 3, I thought that we would move to the point where we would do a basic education law and then policy. but that wasn't to happen. Okay, the government rather prefers to rather do a free senior high school law. Now, let me tell you why having a free senior high school law is good and it's bad. It's good because when you have a free senior high school law, the idea is that even though you already have an existing law in free senior high school in Section 3 of the Pre-Tertiary Education Act, okay, maybe you want to go ahead and tie down the design and the implementation framework into law. Okay, so that's fine. It hasn't happened yet. We have Ghana School Feeding Program, a very big program President Kufuor started, ran for almost 20 years. We don't have a Ghana School Feeding law. It is running. Okay, we have so many other programs. We don't have the laws like FQ. But maybe for certain reasons, you want to tie down the operational mechanisms, the institutional arrangements, frameworks in law, instead of having them in policy, as has always been the case. That's fine. But the challenge is that when you have a free senior high school program, which is modeled on an inequitable resource allocation framework and has cost efficiency issues, if you model that program's structure and design into law, you create a big problem. In that, you end up modeling an inefficiency. The policy is effective. It is very effective. It is delivering its expected outcomes. It is effective. But it is not efficient because the cost of delivering the expected outcome is so high. So if you model the inefficiency, the inefficient model and institutional framework into law, it becomes very difficult to amend it to improve efficiency. It is easier to do so when it is policy, through constructive dialogue. You have what you call formative and summative reviews. Summative is maybe after every 5 years. Formative is periodically, every year something changes. But when you model it into law, when you model this as such a program is designed into law, then it becomes difficult to go and change the law, as we progress. Now, let me just explain why I believe that if we model such a system into law, we'll be modeling an inefficiency. Education is a system, not a program. Okay, so education should not be approached from the program basis. It's a system. So every investment must be holistic, must be systemic. Other than that, you have unbalanced outcomes. A balanced growth of the sector is required to achieve equilibrium. Basic education is the raw material base. It feeds the factory, secondary. Then it feeds another factory or a secondary factory, which is called tertiary. So we have basic education cooking 6 million raw materials meant for shipping to secondary, which will process 1.4 million semi-processed goods, if you like, to the main factory, tertiary. Now, at the 6 million level, we see that a lot more investment will be required because the numbers are huge, and that is the foundation, that's the quality of what will end up as an intermediate good at the secondary level. But we have a program where we are having huge deficits in basic education, investment, and financing as a result of the introduction of the model, not the free senior high school policy. The policy is great, but the model of the free senior high school policy. Because the model of the free senior high school policy is so expensive that within the pre-tertiary system, it can never succeed without dominating, or if you like, crowding out investments that should go to basic education. It will never affect tertiary because the pre-tertiary envelope is for basic and secondary. Tertiary level running costs mainly, apart from salaries, mainly come from IGF in the universities and the tertiary institutions. So pre-tertiary, no one charges fees, so there's no IGF. In that case, if you increase investment proportionally to one subsector, it will reduce investment to the other. Prior to free senior high school, I'm not saying that we have never had deficits in financing basic education. Prior to Free Senior High School, we had huge issues with deficits, deficiencies in financing basic education. But those issues were rural-urban. It was a case of investing in urban basic education infrastructure at the expense of rural areas. So we were deepening the rural-urban divide, and it was manifested in learning outcomes and equitable access indicators. But when we added Free Senior High School to this, we added another dimension of inequity, which is the basic secondary education divide. So secondary education is taking the resources that is inadequate for basic. It is taking some of it. At the same time, too, the little available to basic is also being dominated by the urban areas, with rural areas being at the receiving end. That's why you have 5,000 schools and 5,400 schools still under tree sheds and dilapidated structures since 2017, even though government promised to eliminate them within 5 years. Less than 100 have been eliminated. And at the pace we are going, we need about 300 more years to eliminate them. It's because the money is going to secondary. I'm not saying secondary is not important. Okay. So what we have seen as foundations of cost efficiency and, if you like, inequitable spending in the pre-tertiary space is not about the Free Senior High School policy, but it's about its design. In the past 6 years, about 80% of investment in infrastructure into the pre-tertiary sector has gone to secondary. Our basic has the highest infrastructure gap. You can't even compare it to secondary. Even tenfold, you can't. But about 80% of our infrastructure investment have gone to secondary. And as where I sit, for the next 5, 6, 7 years, I don't see this trend changing significantly because there is still a lot of infrastructure deficits in our secondary education system because we decided to do a heavily burdenized system. 2, if you look at goods and services is the part of the budget where proper education in education takes place, where books, teaching and learning resources are provided, where your capitation grant is provided, where the uniforms, the ingredients that make up free basic education and free secondary education. If you take out teacher salaries and the buildings, the running costs, feeding, utilities, all books, all this come under goods and services. It's a very important component of the education budget. If you look at the pre-tertiary budget for goods and services, in the past 7 years, secondary education has taken at least 95%.
Wow.
95. Leaving only 5 for sharing, not just by basic education, but between basic education, inclusive education, complementary education, and then the GES district and regional offices, 5%.
Serious.
So you see that such inequitable resourcing negatively affect basic, because as you increase the proportional spending in secondary, as a result of the design of our secondary education system, which feeds children of both the rich and the poor, clothes children of both the rich and the poor, buys exercise books and notebooks and PE kits, church clothes for both children of the rich and poor. When children of the poor who attend public basic schools do not have free exercise books, do not have free uniforms. So when you have a system like this, where both the rich and the poor are being fed and clothed and given almost every teacher and learning resource they require, including exercise books and notebooks and PE kits and all this, then the meaning is that you can never ensure equitable disbursement of the education cake within the pre-tertiary space. And basic education will continue to suffer the funding deficits that they are suffering. Now, in the past and in the most recent past, we've seen all stakeholders, apart from, including the government, admitting that there are cost efficiency issues in managing the free senior school program. And I'm ending. Let me indicate that I'm not saying that after all this, the money available to free senior high school is enough. No. After all this, government is still struggling to achieve what we call high levels of budget credibility. Because by 2022, government was allocating over 2.3 billion, but was able to spend only 51% at the end of the year. So there are issues of budget credibility, allocation and disbursement. Allocation on one side, releases and expenditure are at variance. It's a big issue. That's why you will hear feeding issue because of liquidity issues. Even in spite of this, we've seen civil society organizations, international community, traditional authority, the eminent king, Otunfo, made a profound statement on the Free Senior High School and indicated that the Free Senior High School put a strain on the national budget. That is what the eminent king said. Religious bodies who built majority of our senior high schools in this country, religious bodies who built or constructed majority of our senior schools in these countries, and also almost half of our basic schools in this country have raised the same concern that the funding of Free Senior High School program has efficiency issues. When anyone says that, it doesn't mean that it is too expensive. It's not just that. It is how its expensive nature affects resource availability for basic education, which are 6 million children in there. CSOs have said the same thing. So everyone has given indication that the way to go is to review the policy to ensure cost efficiency so that you achieve some level of equitable investment in the pre-tertiary space. Now, even government also has admitted this in this year's, in January's IMF review report, that it has to review to ensure optimum cost efficiency and all that. So, but since January, when government said that in IMF, nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. So, from where I sit, every indication is that the government intends to run with the Free Senior High School program the way it is. Now, if we are running with the program on this low spending efficiency and inequitable risk investment framework, the meaning is that if we move this program into law, then we legitimize or we legalize inequality in resource allocation in the pre-tertiary space. That is serious. If it is policy, we will always continue to dialogue, as CSO have been doing with governments, to improve where we need to improve upon. Develop a system where those who earn within the highest income quintiles or the middle income quintiles will be asked to pay for at least feeding. And then those who earn below the lower, those who earn within the lower income quintiles of 8,000 Ghana cedis a year or below will be made to enjoy free or sometimes even get more because they struggle to finance their prospectus. We have about 10 students in senior high schools that we support because they couldn't fund their prospectus. So those people need more than the 2,000 Ghana cedis averagely that Ghana spends a year on each free senior high school student. So, in conclusion, it is difficult for you to do a review, have a discussion around improving, amending, or changing, or building upon a system that is cost inefficient but very effective when you put it into law. But when it is in policy, it is possible to have, there's going to be a lot of iterations and all that. You get to a point where the policy becomes efficient as we desire. So that is the challenge. Once we move it into law, we shut these doors. We know how long it takes to amend the law. But when it's policy, we are able to continue to go. For now, everything that stakeholders have proposed, none of them have been taken on board by government. None of them. Now, let me finally end by saying that when we move into legislative mode, this is one of the things that may happen. And that's why I am also not comfortable with the implications for the pre-tertiary space, not just secondary education. ABFA, which is the oil revenues received in the education sector, happens to be the only reliable source of financing in the pre-tertiary space. The only reliable source of funding in the pre-tertiary space is ABFA. As a result of the Free Senior High School program, and as a result of the Free Senior High School program's model, not the program, and its liquidity challenges, For the past couple of years, we have made ABFA 100% financing source for the free senior high school program, which means that the only reliable funding stream into the pre-tertiary education envelope is 100% committed to only free senior high school. This is not good in two ways. I'm saying so because a major component of the bill you're going to see will be financing. This is not good because if we commit all our reliable funding to ABFE, it means that we will have issues with having reliable funding for some aspects, some critical aspects of basic education. That is why capitation grant can be in arrears for 2 academic years. The reason why it's also not good is that we've seen oil output decline. In the past 3 years, it has declined by about 10%, and the trend is a declining one. If we experience declining oil output, or we experience falling international commodity prices of oil, which will yield to more or less a decline in oil revenues, it will mean that we'll have fewer amount of money in the ABFA kitty for deployment of for disbursement to education. What would that mean for free senior high school in that case? And so I believe that rushing to put some of these things into law is never the way forward. I think the way forward is that government pre-tertiary education law makes free senior high school law under Section 3, makes FQ, that's free compulsory universal basic education law, in Section 2, provides the GES's role in implementing free secondary education and free basic education in that same law. Everything is there. What government needs to do is to develop a legislative instrument to regulate the implementation of free basic education and free secondary education. And in that LI, we will have funding norms, so that government will know that every year in their budget, I will commit 15% to early childhood, that is kindergartens, the nurseries, 15% to early childhood at the KG level. I'll commit, let's say, 25% or 30% to basic to primary schools. I'll commit 10% to junior high schools. I'll commit 15% to senior high schools. Let's have a funding norm, because underlying all these discussions is about an inefficient financing of one aspect of the pre-tertiary system, which affects funding availability and investment and the quality of equitable access for other segments of the pre-tertiary space.
Wow. What a rather lucid and seminal presentation. I have a number of questions, but I can't ask them because for 2 reasons. One, you have other things to attend to, and also my guests would like to have a bite on what you said so far. But Kofi, this is really fascinating. Thank you very much for making time for us this morning. We're grateful.
Thank you.
That's Kofi Asare, the Executive Director of Policy Think Tank, that's EduWatch, and I can tell you that my resource persons have put a few ideas down that they're sure they would be expressing after we take in this break. We'll be right back. Sorry, welcome back. You're tuning to Inside Pages. You made the right choice because this is where the action is happening. This is where insightful, riveting, and useful conversations take place, and I'm happy that you've joined us. It's 0249-155-646. That's the WhatsApp line for those of you who want to have opinions that you want to share. Some of you have shared your opinions. I'm reading them shortly. I have Mr. Alex Segbefia, who is the Director of International Relations for the NDC, who's here. And also have Kinsley Mwakwa-Buedu, who is a member of the NPP's legal team, but also a member of the party's communications team. So he plays a dual role. He's actually wearing 2 hats. I can see one, but he says he's wearing 2, which is fantastic, which is great. The other thing I can see is Fugu. I can see that too. Anyway, so we'll come back to the conversation we started with, which has to do with the free SHS and the bill, which is supposed to be tabled in Parliament to regulate and to make sure that free SHS is sustainable, as the majority leader has hinted. We've talked about that. We just finished talking to Kofi Asare of EduWatch. Very, very, very powerful presentation he made. When he joined us for close to about 15, 20. We were all listening. We're enjoying it. Anyway, so I'll take concluding remarks from my resource persons, and then we'll move to a second topic, which has to do with that explosive revelations that we had in court from Mr. Richard Jakpa, who's a businessman, in that he's a third accused. Yeah, he's third accused in that ambulance trial case. He said a lot of things. My resource persons will tell you what they make of everything that's happened, also bearing in mind they want to be in contempt of court. Extremely important. Anyway, so concluding remarks, you just heard from Kofi.
First and foremost, can I commend Kofi Asare for that presentation?
Right.
His presentation, I believe, helps me more than my colleague.
Right.
Because, one, let's assume, which we don't accept, that there is any need for protection. He makes it quite clear that the two pillars of pre-tertiary education, namely the F-Cube policy and then the pre-SSS, are already within an act. Section 2 for F-Cube and Section 3 for free senior high school or education. So there is statute already in place that covers these two strands. And I took it a step further by saying even without the statutes, it is enshrined in the Constitution. The steps that have been taken, it's protected. What makes his rendition even sad is that, for me, without him ever saying so in clear words, he actually justifies progressive implementation of SSS. Because if you have a pot of money that you are using each year on pre-tertiary education, and it has to go into two areas, and you have a disparity of 80% against 20 for F-Cube getting 20 and free SHS getting 80%.
In fact, he talks about 95 to 5%.
No, that is the infrastructure.
Oh, infrastructure. Okay, yeah, that's true.
Then when it comes to goods and services, he even goes further, makes it worse. That F-Cube and others are looking at 5%, and free SHS is looking at 95%. So what it tells me is that in order to give teeth to the free SHS policy and to fulfill a political gain, we are cutting our nose to spite our face. Because now you have 5,200 more schools under trees, which is under the F-Cube. But nobody is looking at it. Nobody is caring about it. And much as one would accept that the initial implementation of a policy, say 2-3 years, you would have that some disparity. You cannot say so after 7.5 years that this 80-20, 95, 5%, 95 is the way forward. In fact, he has enlightened, it's a complete education he has given me. Because we have a problem. And this is why I kept saying that there is no policy. A policy is easier to play with than an act of parliament.
Right.
So that's why I said we haven't seen what is in it. But if we are going to find solutions to what he has termed as cost efficiency issues,
right,
then it is imperative that we go slowly on legislation.
Right.
Let's push them more towards
dealing with
a policy.
Inefficient. Okay, towards a policy. Right.
And from that policy, we can then glean an ally, which gives us a little bit of latitude. But if you tie it in now straight into an act, you will sacrifice F-Cube for the benefit of free SHS.
Right.
And so even though it may look like it's working, you have killed, actually, the goose that is laying the golden egg. Because if you get computer rubbish in,
rubbish out,
you have your numbers by your quality. So the basic, and that's why internationally, as almost a human right, or it is a F-Cube, free compulsory universal basic, is a must. And that's how it was framed in our constitution.
Right.
And then for the other part, they said progressive.
Right.
Tertiary doesn't fall in it at all.
Right.
So I'm clear that he confirms my concerns. He justifies the position, and I'm not putting words in his mouth. This is that progressive may have been better. It would have given us more latitude. But I wasn't even...
But Kingsley says his fears you may go back to progressive. That's their fear.
No, we cannot go back to progressive. I'm telling you that's enshrined in the Constitution. We are there.
No,
the only thing that can railroad us
means that the pre-SHS is still in action.
Yes.
But in a different form, in a different model.
No, you see, he mentioned something that was very interesting, which Ken Oforiatta even alluded to. He said,
allow those who can pay to pay.
Thank you. You can decide. You see, education,
yes,
the tuition, free,
yes,
fine.
Okay.
But nothing says that in a policy document. You cannot say that for those who are earning an amount of 50,000 Ghana cedis in salary, they are entitled to pay this percentage of education.
Right.
If you earn 100,000 Ghana cedis, this is what you will be entitled to pay. If you lose it and you can show that you have lost employment, you'll be given the full package as well. So nothing stops a policy document from dealing with, and that will go towards feeding boarding.
Right.
But you can say the tuition free.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
There are many ways of working it. All we are saying is that don't make the whole thing free just by saying so. Why? In all this you are paying, which textbooks are the children learning with?
Good question.
We haven't had any textbooks for the children for how many years?
Yeah.
So what is this point?
Right.
Let us be realistic and do what is right for our children. That's all we are saying. So if you want to make tuition free and one or two other things free, fine. But for those who can afford to pay for their... Why? We had big fights with PTAs where the parent-teacher association come and they are offering, the headmaster takes food from them.
Okay.
Then what happens is the headmaster is transferred and sacked. Right. Why? Because he's going against a political position of free SHS. But the children must eat.
Okay.
So that for me is not realistic. So an eye-opener, and we should all listen to what they are saying.
Okay.
And the more he speaks, the more I'm saying that we are not looking at it from an educational standpoint. We are. Right. There's too much politics.
Politics in this. Kingsley.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I associate myself.
The microphone, sorry. Yes.
Sorry. I associate myself with the last comment he made, that there's too much politics in it. What is the NDC position now in Parliament? They will not support it at all.
No, that's not true.
They've not said that.
They didn't say that. We said we support it. There's
a
statement.
They said they will not support any amendment, any passing of the bill.
No, they've not said that. Actually, there's a statement which Dr. Kesulato Faustin sent to me. He said they are for the bill, but they want to see it.
Yes,
very well. If that is the position, it is still.
Statement is
well, but that's in there. That's in the.
No, I'm talking about an official statement.
Okay, yeah. So that in itself pollutes the idea of having a proper discussion on the matter in the House of Parliament. It pollutes that. Yes. I think we are putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
And again, I think I commend Kofi very well. He quoted three of the laws: pre-tertiary education, the Pre-Education Act, the
at 1049,
at 778,
and 1049,
1049, and 1023. I think super, and presentation super. Again, and I've heard him speak on this several times. I think he's passionate about primary education, rightly so. But this discussion is about the secondary. And so we should have a time to talk about primary, all right? Yeah. And then all the problems and the things that bother him and all of us, we can now deal with that. But now we're talking about the appropriateness of passing this, of presenting this bill, having a discussion on them, and passing it. I agree that if there is, if there's a law, it may be too rigid, all right, and it doesn't give room for a substantive minister and the GES, because we have the Ministry of Education and we have the GES, for them to do what they have to do because it's so rigid. I agree. But then we need to see this bill to see if there are any forms of rigidity
Right.
in it.
Right.
In which case, then we can maintain some broad contour. If you look at Road Traffic Act and the LI, it makes room for those. Sure. If you look at 919, which is the upstream oil and gas industry, it makes room for that. It passes an LI. In fact, we keep on having LI. We have LI 2204. We have the new version of that. We have several LIs to take care of that. So let's not preempt what bill will be brought into Parliament so that we can do justice to this idea of education. I think it's so basic, so fundamental. Right. So let's not preempt that. Of course, you have made an allusion to what the former Minister of Finance said. Several other people have said it. And you see that we have to look at funding. And he said a bigger chunk of this bill will be on funding. Then he went to preempt that it's also going to be from the same source. And that 95 is going here and there. I think we should wait to see what it is. Okay. Because if indeed, and I encourage my brothers to do so, to remove the political cap and come to the table for a deeper discussion on this. Okay. This will outlive us. And it will show the crop of next generation Ghanaians how quality the education is and the quantity. We want everyone to be educated. Right. If you go to several countries, you have majority of them are educated. So it is easier to now come up with policies and directions in governance. I agree. Okay, but if you don't have that, and we're going to have what we're doing, what we've seen, you can't even go to London and stand at a bus station. Right. If you cannot read it right. Absolutely. You just have to look at the board and it'll tell you the next train is in this, or this should be on this platform. Even as an educator, but I've been on the wrong platform. I was going to Midlands to do a case. and the platform, so I joined the train, not knowing the other platform was the one moving there and then. So I rushed and entered the train, and then this one left. 13 minutes difference. Wow. I go to court. The judge asked me, and I said, the train delayed. He won't take that. He won't take that. He asked the clerk to go and call and find out. Then it turns out that, no, the train that left, it was coming there. He wanted to call my head of chambers. That's how strict it is. Why? Because you should read, you should know. Yeah. You see?
No, it's because you are MPP.
Sorry?
I said it's because you are MPP.
Kingsley, let's move on. Let's move on.
It happens. Yeah. You can't read, you can't. Even when you go to the airports. So now,
let's
if you don't read,
let's move on to our
when you
next
go to Ghana here, they will announce on a tannoy. Yeah. This flight is going. You go to Heathrow, there's no announcement.
No, that's true.
And they have how many flights?
Too many flights. They cannot announce.
Exactly. So you can't announce. So the fact that we have that coming and we must put ourselves there. We cannot wait till the thing is so conducive before we do. So I'm glad we pushed it to this level and we are forcing a discussion on it. Okay. And kudos MPP, kudos His Excellency the President, kudos His Excellency the Vice President. Right.
That's the thing about him. He says no politics. But then look, Kingsley. Anyway, so that's it. You just had Kingsley. So 0249155646. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. This is where Ghana listens to. This is where riveting, insightful, and wonderful, great, brilliant conversations take place. I'm happy that you are with us. Now, on Thursday, I'm talking about Thursday, this last week Thursday, something very interesting. So it must have been Thursday. So yeah, Sunday begins the new week. So Thursday, something very interesting happened in court. I'm sure you've all been following that ambulance trial case involving the former Deputy Finance Minister, who is now the Minority Leader. I'm talking about Dr. Ato Forsing. The Attorney General is prosecuting him. There's a third accused person who's a businessman, Richard Jakpa, of Big C's Company Limited. And there was an audio recording between him and the Attorney General. And that audio recording, his lawyers have been wanting the court to admit it. Finally, the court has admitted that audio recording in evidence. And the judge actually gives reasons why it did that. So when I come back from this, I want you to watch this video. When I come back, I'll just give you, snippets of what happened, and then I can get my resource persons. Fortunately, both of them are private legal practitioners, they are lawyers. And so they are going to discuss this.
In Jakpa, he met Godfred Dami twice in Justice Kulendi's house, where he said during their conversation that the primary target of the case was to get the first accused, Dr. Ato Forsing, jailed. He described the meeting, which occurred at night, as significant as they shaped his understanding of his role and the direction of the case. He noted Godfred Dame assured him that he would be discharged during the submission of no case, which is why he chose to cooperate and share documents with the Attorney General. Richard Jakpa further stated that this assurance led him to believe that the Attorney General will assist him, resulting in the AG providing him with the addendum to the main contract between the government of Ghana and Big C even before prosecution had closed its case. According to him, claims that the first tranche of 30 ambulances brought into the country were not fit for purpose is untrue, adding that prosecution was acting in bad faith to cover up government's breach of directive to train paramedics on how to use the equipment that comes with the vehicle. Meanwhile, the court, presided over by Justice Ifeasewa Sareboche, admitted the audio tape into evidence. Justice Ifeasewa Sareboche directed defense lawyers to file any other evidence they intend to tender by 3 p.m. on Friday, June 14, 2024, adjourning the case to Tuesday, 18 June. The Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Tuyayeboah, spoke to the media in the absence of Godfred Dame.
Oh, the judge has given the ruling. That's how the law works. If you think you don't want something to be admitted, you raise an objection. This is the duty of the judge to make a pronouncement of such objections. The judge has done. This audio is something that you have heard, isn't it? Having to heard it, you've heard it. So what is doing it? But it's about procedure. So in terms of the content, we are not minded by that because it's something that is in the public domain. But as to whether you can tender a recorded or screen-recorded audio, something that we don't want to test people, that's our law. Not about public sentiments, whether you are comfortable, you're not comfortable. It's about due process. The judge says that due process can be tendered. The Attorney General does not prosecute all the cases in our office. In this particular matter, sometimes he comes. Other times it doesn't come. Today it's not in. It doesn't mean the next time you know become it. So you leave it there. Tuesday, Wednesday, next month. I'm saying this matter that we started, we are going to prosecute it to its conclusion.
So you heard the Deputy Attorney General, that's Mr. Alfred Tuyayeboah, who was addressing the media right after the court sitting. So on Thursday, Richard Jakpa, the third accused in the ongoing ambulance procurement case, he underwent rigorous cross-examinations by Dr. Keselato Forson's legal team. Dr. Bamba was there. He was the man in action. This followed the trial judge, Justice Ifeasewa Sareboche, admitting an audio recording involving the Attorney General and Jakpa into evidence earlier in the day. Now, during the cross-examination led by Dr. Aziz Bamba, Jakpa disclosed quite a number of things. I'm not sure that I want to go walk you through all of that because my resource persons will tell us what they make of everything that Richard Jakpa has said, what actually struck them. I'll start with Mr. Alex Sebwefi. I'm sure you heard everything that Jakpa was said to have said in court. Which of the things or claims that he's made has actually struck you? And as a lawyer, do you think that this audio which has been admitted is relevant to the case under discussion? That's my two questions.
I'll sidestep the first one.
Okay.
Because as to what he said, how it's to be interpreted or whatever, for me it's evidence and he said it. And whether the judge accepts it or not is her domain. It's within the court domain. And I may be wrong, but I do not want to even cross the line for anybody to think I'm in contempt. So I'm not going to necessarily speak specifically of what he said.
Okay.
What concerns me is where this case is taking, firstly, our judiciary, secondly, our legal system, and the way any legal group, internal or external, will be viewing what is happening in Ghana now. We are at the bottom of the pot. Ghana, in my humble opinion, gets worse by the day in terms of legal criminal jurisprudence. with the continuous revelations by the defendant. And the tape has serious implications because the Attorney General, who is at the heart of it, denied any such meetings in his first written document that came out from his office.
Statement.
Only for now it to be said that the tape is doctored, which confirms not the number of times, but at least there were meetings. In legal jurisprudence, criminal that is, it is a no-no for a defendant or a prosecutor to be talking to a defendant, except in exceptional circumstances, without his lawyer. And even that has to be brought to the notice of the court, if that is going to happen. So it's the fact that it even happened is a serious issue in itself. And the more revelations that come, look, up until the hearing yesterday, on Thursday, there was some form of speculation about a Supreme Court judge's involvement. By the time that Thursday has gone, it has gone deeper. By the time the court cross-examines, the prosecution cross-examines Jakpa, I believe it will get worse. It's not helping us. When I look at the sum total of what this case is about, I must ask myself, should we destroy our whole posture of our judicial system, which has gone through enough with the expose of the Anas tape at one point, and have taken time to rebuild, and then come and be sunk by this again, regardless of what happens? On the altar of we must convict, definitely, somebody for a situation which I'm still trying to understand. Because you have some vehicles, you have some equipment. And someone has said, we are told, give me back my things, I'll give you back your money. If you put all this together, isn't it time for people behind the scenes to find a way to halt any further exposés from whoever on this matter? Because whatever happens, look, the AG's office cannot come out good from this issue. It cannot. At least in the court of public opinion. You can win through whatever situation in the court of law. But we are being damaged. And it is an area which we have never seen before. Advice has been given. We've heard the Deputy Attorney General. So is the AG going to come and cross-examine Jakpa in court on a matter which he is directly involved in? Hello? How does this, what do we think we are doing to ourselves?
And the fact that he may not even have an opportunity for a rebuttal. He can only ask the question.
That's why, look, it is, if it is the case of, for bravado, I'm telling the cameras I can go, but he doesn't turn up, and it's all done. At some point, is he required to give evidence as Attorney General on the issue? How is he going to? If not, you have to take the tape as his highest in favor of the defendant. That's how I understand my law. I may be wrong. But if somebody can give answers to a question and he cannot be cross-examined on the matter, how do you say that you put this? It means that everything the person who has brought it says is accurate.
Sir.
Well, it doesn't. It's open to.
You are going. You are going.
I'm going inside. I should
come out.
I'll come out. Okay, I withdraw.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to evidence.
I'm going to help.
I'll come back.
Okay, please do.
You see,
yes.
But it creates a problem. It creates a problem for all of us. We must find a way to stop this. I'm not in charge of the case.
But that's not practicable, is it?
Why is it not practical?
To hold the proceedings?
No, there's many ways of look, this is law.
Off camera?
There are ways of dealing with this case. You see, the fact that the final solution will give political advantage to one group or the other should not be the basis. I'm saying that whatever happens, the damage to us is greater. I'm just saying, as in terms of lawyers, in terms of our legal processes, I'm saying that
even the judiciary,
everybody's in it now.
So even let's cut
and
our
the
losses.
damage period, cut your losses. Look, we are in a situation of similar, and I'm moving away from law.
Right.
We said go to IMF. You said no. If we had gone to IMF 14 months before we did,
we won't be here.
We won't be here. But when we said it, political lenses were put on it. No. We ended up with the IMF. And we were now in a bad way. So you would have the same problem you thought you get politically, you have it now. And it's now worse anyway. But Ghanaians are suffering also because of it. And I'm saying that this particular situation we are in, it's not good for us. As lawyers who are sitting down watching, some of us, we don't understand what is going on. And it is very difficult for us to proffer, and I'm glad for your intervention, so I have withdrawn.
Yes.
It is very difficult for us to proffer any type of solution because before the court, and the court will make, all I'm appealing is that those that are involved should find a way to truncate this issue.
It's not good for us.
It's a prosecution. The prosecution bring the case.
They can discontinue.
So they have options. It is not an option for any defense person. They have options. And that is where I leave it.
If the prosecution discontinues, won't the same critics say that well, he has eggs on his face? That's why his father nolipos.
Look, anyway this goes, it will not be good. This is what I'm saying. It's like IMF.
So let's choose the lesser.
You decide that you won't go. So it's going to look bad for us politically. It's going to, in the end, because whatever decision is made, nothing stops anybody from going to the international courts tomorrow. Either ECOWAS, AU, or even the International Court of Human Rights. And that is when it will rather open up. Nothing stops anybody. So let us not think that we are an island in this matter.
At the moment, we're dirtying ourselves, as we say it in our local
This is what I'm saying. We don't, the effect on us is not good.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody you speak to is concerned. But because now the tape is admitted into evidence, we are gagged. So I cannot go into it. Yeah. And if I have, apologies.
That's fine.
To this, but that's where I am.
Do you agree with perhaps the judge, Sawabotri, who was of the opinion that if the Attorney General would listen to her advice, or it would be useful for the Attorney General to not be the one directly prosecuting this case because of everything that has happened? Do you think that now is the time for perhaps the Attorney General to reflect on that? Because as Alex has said, he now has to go and cross-examine. And you and I can anticipate what that would look like if that happens.
Well, I want to say that we are, there are a lot of things I'm seeing on the proceedings that occurred on the 13th of June. I was in court that day, and a lot of things I can talk about. And but I have to dance very tight rope so that you don't come across as proffering an interpretation on a piece of evidence. Yeah. And I'm constrained about that. Except to see that Her Ladyship Justice Efia-Sewa Asare-Botry prefixed her advice, and I'm glad we know that it's an advice, a strong advice and not a directive or an order. And I've said it, and I keep on saying that it is for the AG to take it. All right. And she said that because, you see, justice emanates from the people, if you look at the Constitution. All right. Even though judicial power under Article 125 rests with the judiciary, it emanates from the people. And so we must always ensure that the people are with us. It's unfortunate that the politics out of it it's so heightened that, and not to blame my brother personally, but I think his party adopted a political push out of this, applying for TV coverage as if something without that nothing.
I mean, there was something to hide.
Something to hide, and so everyone should see it, and everyone listen to the tape as we played in open court and whatnot. I mean, the law is the law, all right? And a lot has been said on the 13th. One thing that strikes me is he, in his opening statement, said, the first meeting, I requested for the meeting.
Okay.
All right. He's saying that. The third accusation, he requested for the meeting. And several other things follows, and the timings and whatnot has followed. And then an exhibit V is now being discussed. And he said certain things about exhibit V on page 10. He said that, no, my lady, that the aspect of the contract has not been executed. All right, and I'll leave the rest because he's not finished. He's under cross-examination now, and I know that the prosecution will cross-examine him on all these matters, and then there will be, if his lawyers choose to do so, to re-examine him.
So it would then become a case of. He says, I says.
No, not necessarily. There's he says, if you see, let's be mindful of the fact that the ingredients of the crime is what we're looking at. So does any evidence support that? For the prosecution's point of view, any evidence that supports that is what they're going to proffer before the court and establish that. You know, there's one thing saying something, but the evidence has to be established.
True.
Then, for the defense, all they need to do is raise reasonable doubt.
True.
Because the threshold is beyond reasonable doubt, isn't it? So bring it down to the reasonable doubt, because all doubts will be resolved in favor of the defendant. Because that's what they have to be doing. Anything that goes beyond that to throw something out in a public domain to achieve a political narrative and a political advantage, that is what we seem to be, if I'm supposed to agree with you that we're watching our dirty linen in the open, that is what happens. So
you must comment on credibility, because actually this is fundamental to this case.
Yeah, but I don't determine credibility.
That's what I'm saying.
So
anyway.
I'll leave it to the judge to determine credibility and all that. Exactly. After cross-examination, during the cross-examination, those things will come out. You see, so if we are all depoliticizing this, he himself, some of the answers he's given, is so political. But then he said that between 2012 and 2014, the government didn't do something. We are not latching on to that. And we are jumping to after 2017, the government didn't do something, and we say, oh, that was big. And he himself has now said that was because. You see, so let's leave all this. Let's leave the politics of it, and let's look at the judge and the decision, the matter in court, how it progresses. And there are solid lawyers representing both A1 and A2. I've worked with Dr. Bassett Bamba before in Dominica Hine's law firm. He was a head of chambers at some point. Great guy. I used to go with him to court, so I know him. You know, Thaddeus is someone I can easily call. Senior, what do you think about this? You profile, and he's always on point. So, and as for the prosecution side, I mean, it's solid team. Right. So let's see how the matter is resolved in court. If at some point the prosecution thinks that they must issue a non proscribed, yeah, so be it. Because you see, we want to preserve and protect the public purse. We don't go after individuals. That is not the essence. It is that we are protecting public purse. So much as we are mindful of whatever happens in court and the public perception, international domain and all that, we must also protect the public purse.
Right.
You see, so that is what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Do you agree with what Alex Segwefia said when he talks about the fact that, look, perhaps, just perhaps, we may have to discontinue this case because the damage that we've caused ourselves in terms of the optics that's out there, we may not be able to repair it for a very long time. Let's cut our losses. Let's find a way of halting this whole process because it doesn't look good. I don't know whether you agree with that.
I do not particularly agree with that. I do not particularly agree with that because this is not the first case which has political dimensions.
No, I don't think we've ever seen something like this before. This is different.
Committees, but everything is different. I mean, we've had I don't want to mention their names. We've had several other so-called very political, let me use this for case. And we are still surviving.
Right.
You see, so what would, unless we are going to spin those spins out there, and one of the things I am against is that we, and my brothers from the other side, and they say, we'll put this spin on it as if to bring pressure to bear on the judiciary. It never works. It never works. Okay? So that, they should stop that.
You see, Alex is not really coming from the angle of
the judiciary.
Whether somebody is, first of all, the judiciary and whether somebody is right or wrong.
I'm talking about the prosecution.
But he's just saying that the whole process, what we're being taken through,
I'm saying this is not the first time.
Ghana look good.
I'm saying this is not the first time we've had a case that has those proportions. This is not the first time.
But this is the first time we've had.
This
is the first time we had somebody say he has an audio recording.
Because now we have recordings.
Yes.
Now people are being recorded.
Yes.
Remember that ordinarily that would not even be admissible.
Right.
Ordinarily.
Right.
But this is a case where her ladyship has admitted it during the application stage. And it's part of the records of the court.
Yes.
And I was expecting that because of and the reason she gave, and the fact that she's commented on the content of it, she by all means admit it. That was my expectation. So I wasn't surprised at all.
All
right.
So which was actually good law. To admit it was good law.
Yeah, because she said,
where I'm coming from.
She said, if the prosecution had a single piece of evidence,
I've never said it's not good law.
Oh, okay.
But I'm saying that she's actually made a value judgment on what's on it.
Yeah.
And said that on it, nobody's being coached.
Yeah.
So we wait and see.
It's rather a nuance to the benefit and
she's actually getting that
you see, you're almost getting me to cross.
Trouble, yes.
But let me hand that back. It's that comment rather a nuance to the benefit of the prosecution. And so that is what, if I was the one prosecuting, that's what I'd be coming at. That this. And so you see the line of questioning my learned friend Bassett also was asking. Because it has to, raise the doubts that the court has already that this did not do this. And so you can see the line of questioning he was asking. He has to raise reasonable doubt to counter that. And so you see, I'm saying that yes, there's a public domain, there's an international community. He's even talking about his business and whatnot. But this is not the first time. Indeed, that Ohinijan matter was quoted, all right, to show that this is not the first time.
But how did that end up?
That was a different. That was a different.
No,
let me learn. That's a different dispensation.
We ran out of time.
Different dispensation.
We ran out of time.
And different issues.
Yeah.
But
I hear you.
Let's protect the public purse.
Right. Okay. So
if in 2078 you find yourself in government, you will not say.
I like that. I like
2078.
Let me
you find yourself. If
let me read this. Now,
you find yourself in government.
That is true.
There's actually
for about 50 years.
You will not say that.
There's actually.
You will not prosecute someone you think.
Let me please read this message. There's a message from a lawyer, fairly popular guy, but he says, please keep my name anonymous for obvious reasons. I mean, we all know why. So he says that on the issue of continuing the case, based on what you said, he said there are two broad considerations when it comes to prosecution. One, will a conviction be obtained if the case goes to court? That's one. Two, is it in the public interest to prosecute?
Those are the rules.
Two, we are at a crossroad when it comes to the answer to the second question, and it is a question that has to be answered not from a political or emotional perspective. And this is where I say...
Wait.
This is what I'm going to read.
Before you go there,
Yes.
I wore black and white,
Right.
black and red today
Right.
because of a funeral of my Honorable N.S. Patrick Kojo Mallet.
Okay.
He's a former DCA of South Dai District and formerly of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And I want to say commiserations to his family. May he rest in peace. From here, I'm rushing there.
Okay.
May he really rest in peace.
May the souls of the departed rest in peace. Yeah. Now, good morning, my brother. My regards to your panelists, especially Honorable Alex Segbefia. I think there's already legislation that deals with pre-tertiary education passed by Parliament of Ghana. Laying another bill to deal with free SHS amounts to duplication of laws. It has been the modus operandi of the MPP to think that Ghanaians would only look at free SHS to cast their votes in December. They should wake up and smell the coffee. Ghanaians offered them an opportunity, and because of greed, they squandered that and committed heinous crimes against the people of Ghana. How do we get out of this quagmire they have landed this country into? Let's come from Abdul Razak in Medina. Good morning, please. Why is it that the media houses do not want to be going to SHSs frequently and finding out for themselves in order to help put things in better perspective? You will be surprised to know that less than half of students who get food to eat at each meal, the students who don't get there early don't get food. So most of them don't go at all. ETK from Koforidia. I want to say, and there's a message that says, thumbs up to, you're doing a good job. Thank you very much for watching another edition of Inside the Pages. This is where Ghana Talks. My name is Aldo Moro. Thanks to Alex Segbefia, Director of International Relations for the NDC, and also the man, Kingsley Amwakwa Boedu, who is a member of the MPP's legal team and also a member of his communications. I want to say a big thanks to Kofi Asari of Edwatch. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.